Hi, welcome to Shared Reading. I have my book and a pencil out, so I'm ready to go. We left off on page 20 here, and there's this little think before you text thing that we're going to read, and then we've got some more writing that we get to do with scenarios, so things that might happen and then what to do in them. All right, here we go. Think before you text. You should really think before acting, saying something. Just like pause. That pause. Another way kids empty each other's buckets is through texting and posting on social media, like Instagram and Snapchat, or like when you're playing a video game and you message someone. Some experts say that kids should hold off on owning digital devices until they are at least 14 years old. But kids who are much younger are using smartphones, tablets, and other digital devices more than ever. You have a Chromebook. A recent study by Common Sense Media showed that almost half of U.S. kids have their own digital devices by the time they turn 9. Do you have your own? They use them to view videos, post photos, play games, and chat with their friends. If you're using these devices to talk with your buddies, remember that text can hurt or embarrass someone. They can also be misunderstood. Oftentimes, you won't be able to gauge another kid's reaction to a comment because you can't see them smile or frown. Plus, it's easy for people to share texts and photos with other people without your knowledge. Did you know that it's really easy if I posted a picture on, let's say, Facebook? It's really easy for a random person who's scrolling through to see my picture and to save it or make a copy of it and to use it on their own. Anything that you post online can be done that way. Any information, if you have a friend and you tell them something and you're like, but keep it secret, they could always share with somebody else. And on social media, things seem to travel pretty fast. If you or your friends are chatting through digital devices, including video games, experts suggest asking yourself these questions before you send a text or post an online comment. This has to do with that online community being a super safe digital citizen too. Would I say this to someone in person? Are my words helpful or hurtful? Would a parent or other adult approve? I always tell the kids in class, if you wouldn't be comfortable with Mrs. Heffa sitting there and watching you do it, then you're probably not supposed to be doing it. So that's what I always tell the kids. And that seems to work pretty well. They go, I don't think Mrs. Heffa would like me saying this to a friend, so I shouldn't do it. Just think to yourself the next time that you're doing something, if Mrs. Heffa just popped out of your pocket and I was there, would you be okay with me seeing whatever you're saying to a friend? I don't know. And I will say it talked about you can't gauge another kid's reaction. That means you can't really tell how they're going to take something that you say over text. And with the whole stuff going on in the world and supposed to be staying at home, especially in the spring, I can tell you right now it was really hard for adults, me included, when I would text my friends or coworkers, anybody, and I couldn't tell how they were going to react to it. It was so tricky because I sometimes like to make jokes, but then I worried because if I didn't say like laugh out loud or a bunch of like laughing emojis, I was worried they would take things the wrong way. And there were times where I know that people did, especially with other people too. And it was just, it's so difficult when you're trying to share something when you're just texting because you can't see that person's face, which is why I like videos a little bit more because I can see your face. Okay, that was some good information. I like that. Scenario number 1. We're going to read these in these following pages and write what could have been done instead. Here we go. Your friend rushes over to you to share that he finally scored a goal at his soccer game. You interrupt his story to brag about how you scored 3 goals at your game. What could you have done instead? I can think of something. Kind of took away his spotlight. You made it your own. You can be happy for what you've accomplished, but you also want to cheer on your friends. Go ahead, pause the video, write down what you would have done instead, and then we'll move on to scenario 2. Okay? I'm going to do this after the video because I do want to keep going so that you can just pause and write, and this video then isn't super long, okay? But I am going to do this when I'm done, and I'll show you next time. Make sure to show you. I promise. I did the work. Scenario 2. You and your friends are playing a video game at your house. Oh, I've done that before. Your younger brother wants to join in. He keeps coming over and asking to play, but you say no and tell him to stop bothering you. He starts saying silly words and poking you. You start calling him an annoying little baby and tell him to go away. Your friends start calling him that too. He starts crying. What could you have done instead? This is a tough one because sometimes siblings are, like little brothers, little sisters, can be really tough to deal with. But I bet there was a better way to do it. This is good. I like this. Pause the video, write down what you would have done instead. Thinking of filling someone's bucket and not dipping from it. Hopefully you paused the video and you wrote down what you would have done. We're on scenario number 3. On the school bus, you and your friends start making fun of a first grader's hairstyle. At first, the younger kid laughs, but then you notice tears forming in her eyes. Your friends keep cracking jokes about her. You sit quietly and ignore them. What could you have done instead? Ooh. That's a tough one. And the bus is tricky because there aren't really a lot of adults, just the driver. So it's kind of kids that have to stick up for each other. That might be part of what I might write down. Pause the video, write down what you would do instead, a way that you could fill someone's bucket rather than dipping from it. Be the goodness, the shiny, happy, fuzzy, yay, light in the world rather than the murmur light in the world. Here we go, scenario number 4. In gym class, one student is never picked for a team. Most kids either choose their close friends or kids they know are good at the activity. This might also be at recess because I know sometimes Mrs. Drager just assigns you to groups. You and some of your classmates moan and roll your eyes when the student gets put on your team. What could you have done instead? And it's okay to feel that way. We're not going to force you to feel a certain way about someone, but I will tell you right now what I think about this one and what I'm probably going to say is that sometimes when you feel that way, you just have to keep it in your head. That whole thing where they tell you if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. You're allowed to not be super excited about a certain person. There might be people that you don't get along with 100% at school, and that's okay. There are people here that I work with that are not my friends, like Mrs. Cederland or Mrs. Johnson, but I still get along with them, and I still try to be polite and make sure that I'm filling their bucket and not dipping from it. So kind of, write down something there, maybe about that, or maybe you have a better idea than me. I don't know. You guys have some pretty good ideas. Scenario number 5. During a math lesson, you notice that your classmate is struggling with a word problem. He turns to you and asks for help. After all, you scored 100% on the last test. You say, "That is so easy. I can't believe you don't know that." What could you have done instead? Now, I'm someone who struggled with math, and I would have been that kid who would have probably asked a friend for help, especially in middle school and high school. Ooh. Those are some struggle days, you guys. And I'm trying to think of if someone would have said that to me, "That's so easy, I can't believe you don't know that," I would have felt horrible for a while. And every single time I went into that class, I would have felt pretty bad. So what could you have said instead of that? Instead of saying, "Well, that's really easy, I can't believe you don't know that." And I'm thinking about myself and how it made me feel. So I definitely have a way that I think it should be handled differently. Go ahead and finish that up. And then next time we will start on chapter 3. Please make sure that you're filling out this book. This will be really cool to go back and find later when you're a little bit older and see what you wrote down. I always like doing that. It's almost kind of like you have a journal, but not quite. So I am going to do mine after this video so that this video isn't super long and you guys just had a lot of time to pause the video and write rather than having to sit and stare at the screen with my face. All right, guys, thanks for doing some shared reading with me, and I will see you next time. We are working through this book really well, and then we get to move on to the next book. Yay! All right, guys. Toodles! See you later.